legislation bill. And it is I guess it's ironic that we're debating this legislation bill at a time when the New Zealand public are crying out to hear what the National Party's plan for step change of the New Zealand economy is. Here we are in Parliament debating a bill that will modernise and improve the law relating to the publication, availability, reprinting, revision and official versions of legislation, and to bring this law together in a single piece of legislation. That's the most important thing that the National Party want to bring before the House at this particular point in time, as a piece of legislation to modernise other pieces of legislation. So while New Zealanders are signing up for the dole, and this government's building the recovery plan amounts to little more than a blank piece of paper on their printed off their website, they want to bring before the House their legislation bill. And it's ironic as well that the bill is in the name of the Attorney-General, Christopher Finlayson, because he's been quite critical of the previous Labour government for bringing forward pieces of legislation that he didn't think were particularly serious, such as, for example, the Statutes Amendment Bill, when he said this useless government spends an enormous amount of time on minor pieces of legislation contained in the Statutes Amendment Bill. It does absolutely nothing with the very important legislation that is languished on the order paper. That was Chris Finlayson. So I looked at the order paper and I thought, well, actually, here we are debating the legislation bill in his name when there's legislation on domestic violence on the order paper. Government's done nothing with that. Foreshore and seabed, there's legislation on the order paper on the foreshore and seabed. Nothing. The government hasn't done anything on that. In fact, it's been put on hold. The Foreshore and Seabed Act has been put on hold according to the order paper. Plenty of other bills on here that could be progressed, but no, the government thinks that modernising the laws around legislation is more important. John Key said in 2008 that Labour was out of ideas, it's out of steam and it's out of puff. New Zealanders should stop looking to Labour, they should look to National because only one party has bold ideas. The legislation bill is the National Party's new bold idea because they're rebuilding the road to recovery as a blank piece of paper. The most detail that we've had out of the National Party today is their legislation bill that they're bringing before the Parliament at the moment. That's what John Key regards as bold ideas that are going to turbocharge the New Zealand economy and result in step change for New Zealand businesses, get more people into work. It's all going to be achieved through the legislation bill, which is the National Party's most important priority in the House at this particular point in time, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, the Labour Party supports this legislation bill to the first reading because we think it's relatively sensible. I don't intend to go through all the details at the moment. I'm very privileged to be on the Regulations Review Committee now. I want to thank my colleague, the Senior Whip, for giving me that opportunity. Or maybe not. I'm still reserving judgment. But I am looking forward to scrutinising this legislation. I know the Attorney-General is very keen for me to finish. The Attorney-General is very, very keen for me to finish, but I'm so excited about this legislation bill because of the huge impact it's going to have on the New Zealand economy, on turbocharging the New Zealand economy, on creating that step change that everybody is looking for, we're going to catch up with Australia because of the measures contained in this legislation amendment bill. I'm not surprised the Attorney-General can't wait to get this bill voted on and passed through this House because it is so central to the government's agenda. He must be so very proud. It's a very proud day for him to see this piece of legislation brought before this House. Thank you very much, Mr Speaker.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary will say no. The ayes have it.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Christopher Finlayson.
I move that the legislation bill be considered by the Regulations Review Committee.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary will say no. The ayes have it. The House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow.